that would be maybe a concern for me. Eddie Howe's going to want to make a statement.
All right, hello and welcome to the Matchday Vlogs channel. We're here for the first time for an opposition preview with our guest, Pete Davey from LOADED MAG NUFC. Pete, how are you doing? Keeping well?
Very well, very well. And I'm not going to lie, it's good to talk to you again, Mike. I'm glad to have you back in the Premier League, that's for sure.
Oh, thank you. Do you know, when the full-time whistle went at Wembley, the first thing I thought was, I can have a chat with Pete again. This is amazing. This is absolutely amazing.
You're lying. That definitely wasn't
No, there's been quite a few channels that I've really missed catching up with, and all jokes aside, you guys have been one of them. So I'm very pleased to be back, albeit a little bit apprehensive going into the season. But that is, of course, why we are here, to have a chat with the opposition, to get an insight as into what we can expect at the game on Saturday. So, Pete, what have you made of Newcastle's transfer activity? I mean, we're deep amongst it. The transfer window has been open for a while. I see. Am I right in saying that Lewis Hall is now officially signed? He was only on loan last season. Am I right in thinking that?
That's true. Yeah.
What have you made of things going on elsewhere? There has been talk of players departing Newcastle that I'm sure been a bit wary of. But what have you made of it?
I'm not going to lie. It's been pretty messy this summer. It hasn't been a great summer for transfer activity. Obviously, we had the well-documented PSR scramble at the back end of June, where we all of a sudden had to recoup a large chunk of money, looking at nearly sort of 70 million that we had to recoup, otherwise would have been faced with a 10-point deduction. So that resulted in Yakube Minte, a really exciting young prospect that we only signed for 6 million the season previous and loaned to Feyenoord. We had to send him to Brighton for 33 million. We then sold one of our youth academy projects, or products, should I say, in Elliot Anderson for 35 million to Nottingham Forest, and we had to do it. The only alternative to not selling those was to sell an Anthony Gordon, or there was rumbles of Isak being or Chelsea being interested in Alexander Isak, and so they were the softer blows of the two when you consider it up, and so we had to make big decisions, and it all came as a bit of a shock for Newcastle United fans. We weren't expecting it. We were all excited about signings that would come in, and then the big ones were the two that left. So it left us reeling a little bit. We got Odysseys of Lacademos as part of the Elliot Anderson deal, the goalkeeper, Greek goalkeeper. It's a weird one because we don't actually know why we signed him. We didn't need him. We were looking actively at other goalkeepers. He's clearly going to be sort of a second choice at best for Newcastle United. And I don't particularly think Eddie Howe wanted him. So really weird situation. We then obviously got Lloyd Kelly in, which was a big coup for us. He looks an exciting talent. He can play left back, left centre back. And then we kind of got some real positive news with Paul Mitchell, our sporting director, coming in, with the Dan Ashworth situation being resolved. He's gone to Man United now. Paul Mitchell is one of the most exciting sporting directors in Europe. So to get him was like a real lift, and we were going, right, okay, now we're ready for the summer to kick in. Nothing's happened. No. Like, honestly, nothing's happened. We've been linked with Mark Gay. We've had 3 bids rejected as of us having this discussion today, and we don't know whether we're even going to go back to the table. And our big main money cash signings are signings that were meant to come into the first team and make us better. Still haven't happened yet, and we're days away from the Premier League season starting. So messy is probably the right word to describe it. I've got to be honest.
Yeah, you do seem a little bit underwhelmed by the activity. I mean, are you kind of like restricted by the FFP, PSL, all that kind of stuff? Is that what's holding the transfers back?
Well, it's a weird one really, because we keep getting told that, and we're in a new PSR cycle. So really, at this point, we shouldn't be. But yet, with the Mark Gay situation, we've bid a lot. We bid 60 million for him, all in, which is a lot of money for a centre-back, albeit a very good one. That doesn't scream to me that there's PSR concerns if we're putting that amount of money down on a player. But we keep getting told that that's the case. And I think sometimes it's put out there for our sakes to kind of dampen our expectations, and then sometimes Newcastle United surprises. I don't see it as an issue. We've got a brand new cycle that we're just in. We've made sales as well. We're going to make more sales. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it.
No, okay. Well, time will tell. There's plenty of time to get business done, and but hopefully you don't get any more done by Saturday. That'd be really helpful for us at least. You guys have been pretty much on pre-season since the season finished, haven't you? Literally, you're on a plane across the world to play Premier League opposition again. I mean, it does seem bizarre, but what have you made of the pre-season activity? Have there been any particular positives or any concerns that have come out of that?
Not really. There were massive concerns last year when we went to America, and Eddie Howe didn't hide that at all in his interviews. The Australia trip, literally a day after the season finished, wasn't ideal. It was purely a money spinner. I think they got paid a number of millions of pounds to go and take that trip, along with Tottenham Hotspur, who made the exact same trip. Wasn't ideal. We had players that were meant to then go off to the Euros. We had players that were meant to go off to the Copa America. They kicked the ball for a little bit in the first game against Tottenham, and then all jetted off individually to where they needed to get. It was just, again, it was a very messy situation and purely a money spinner. Our pre-season's been okay, to be fair. We've played some really good football. Being back with Adidas again, we went to their headquarters and had a really good training camp, had a behind closed doors friendly there that went well.
Very nice kits, by the way.
Yeah.
I have to say, that away kit.
The release of that is probably the best release I think I've ever seen of an away kit ever. Like, it was really, really special especially for our fans. But we've had a good preseason. Went to Hull, won there convincingly. We went to Japan, which was great for us. Long way to travel, not ideal. Very humid out there. Lots of concerns with regards to the humidity. Won the first game comfortably. Lost the second game comfortably, which the humidity apparently that day was really bad. Really not good at all. So I'm not surprised that Newcastle United kind of fell flat there, but a good experience, great to mix with the fans from different parts of the world. And then we had the Seller Cup this weekend that I went to. I took my boy for the first time, he's 5, to his first ever game at St James's Park, and he absolutely loved it. And
amazing.
Won both of those games against Champions League opposition. So in terms of the football on the pitch, it's actually been quite good. What we've seen pre-season, obviously we've got a lot of players back fit and firing, the likes of Joe Linton. We've got obviously Bruno's stayed at the club, which is amazing in itself. Anthony Gordon is back. Harvey Barnes, Nick Pope. I could go through with the amount of injuries we had last season. Or they're all fit and had a strong pre-season. So, albeit the signings are not come in, the fact that we've got those boys back and firing is huge for Newcastle.
It's almost like new signings in themselves, effectively.
And then we've got Sandro Tonali that comes back, not at the weekend, thankfully for you, but the Tottenham game, third game in, his ban is over and he's back in the fold. So.
Okay, nice. Well, it's fun to hear you talk about fiery pre-seasons. We actually had 2 red cards in a game against Lazio last week, so yeah, that's fiery. Yeah, full on.
It was a bit of a scuffle.
There was a bit of a scuffle.
Yeah,
Charlie Alcaraz jumping in, probably where he didn't need to, but as the fan forum players did say, if one of us is in a fight, we're all in the fight. And the follow-up question was, are we going to get used to playing with 10 men then? But we shall see. So looking ahead at the game at the weekend, I mean, are there any particular areas that you think Southampton can expose Newcastle?
2 areas if you're going to kind of exploit us. And look, we've talked about the fact that we need a centre-back in. I would say the centre-back area, we're not sure. Fabian Shaw limped off in the game on Saturday. We don't know how serious that is. They haven't come out and give us any indication on that. If he's missing, then the centre-back position is a huge hole, because then we've got Emil Kraft that's going to come in to replace Fabian Shaw, and Kraft and Byrne is not a Premier League centre-back pairing, in my opinion. And that would be a concern for me. If Shaw's in there, I think we're strong enough. Because there's enough experience and know-how between those two. However, the right-hand side is an area for me. Tino Livramento, we talked about, obviously.
How is he? We miss him dearly.
Yeah, he had a. I'm not going to lie, he had a bit of a slow start to Newcastle, and I think it was more Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe,
Okay.
obviously, we had Kieran Trippier, which was always going to be number one at that point, and it was a bedding in period. Obviously, he'd had a very serious injury that he'd just come back from before we signed him from you. He'd just come back to you and started playing.
Yeah.
We kind of bedded him in and got him up to speed, and then when Trippier had his downfall, bad period in December, Tino Livramento came in and then was very, very good throughout the rest of that season. However, on that right-hand side, it's probably the attacking side, because we've got Murphy, Miguel Almiron. Murphy's had a brilliant pre-season, but he wouldn't necessarily be our first choice right winger if we had the chance to sign somebody. So maybe that right-hand side is an area that you could potentially try and exploit, particularly with the overlaps. Because our wingers are not necessarily the greatest at kind of working back and covering well. And if you kind of double up on Tino, you might get some joy there. But I would say probably more than anything, it's a centre-back position that is the concern.
On that point, I mean, are there any particular areas that Southampton have that you're concerned about? Any areas of threat? Any players that you think can cause Newcastle problems?
It's an interesting one because you've had obviously a lot of changes. Obviously, of course, someone I know well in Shay Adams is moved on, and there's a. I think you've had a few players that have come in this summer, haven't you?
Yeah, well, we've had Finn Downs and Taylor Harwood-Bellis come in as permanent deals because they were effectively loan players last season. So we spent about 50 million quid on those two players alone. So they're kind of new signings, but they're also the same team that we had in the Championship. Yeah. We've got Sugawara in the right back position. Ben Brereton Diaz, who scored some goals in a very poor Sheffield United side, would be the players to know. And then also some centre-backs, Ronnie Edwards and Nathan Wood, who've come in. I think probably talents for the future, but whether or not we'll see them start Saturday, I doubt it. But yeah, that's generally been our activity.
I think my main concern with potentially conceding goals is from set pieces. Now, I don't know how you are with set pieces, but it was an area towards the back end of the season that wasn't great for us. And so Ben Brereton Diaz was a part of that. I think Sheffield United scored a set piece goal, and I think he played a part in that at St James's Park. So that would be a concern with him up front, because I do think he's a Premier League striker. I think he's a decent player, and I think it was a really good acquisition from you. And I think he'll score goals for you next season, absolutely. But that would be maybe a concern for me, is those set pieces. Now, I don't know how effective you were last season from set pieces. Is that something that you kind of got a lot of joy from?
Yes and no. But in pre-season, I think Sugawara, who's come in very recently, is looking very, very good at free kicks and corners and things like that. So that would be kind of good. Stuart Armstrong's moved on, sadly, but he was a good replacement for James Ward-Prowse for the corners and things like that. But we did score a few goals from set pieces, but we didn't have VAR last season, so we had a few naughty goals that came in off certain limbs and certain things like that. So we're not looking forward to the technology being brought back in. I mean, do you have any other general thoughts on Southampton, how well you think we can do in this Premier League campaign? You can be very honest. You're in a safe space, don't worry.
I think now more than ever, it is really difficult for newly promoted teams. And the reason being, and I was having a conversation on my channel yesterday about this. We had a panel show, and the Premier League now, with, I would say, the top 8, top 10 teams, is probably the most competitive that it ever has been. So I think for the teams coming up, it's probably now harder than ever to pick up points, particularly against that top 10 kind of teams. And you could throw any of those top 10 teams out there, but we all know the top 6, and then you've got a number of us after that. I'd probably put us in that bracket along with like your Villas and your West Hams after that. And you've got your Brightons, you've got your Wolves, you've got teams like that are in that competitive sort of top end of the table. And so I think it's harder to pick up points, and that's not just for you. That'll be the same for Leicester. It'll be the same for Ipswich. I think it will be difficult. I think it's not impossible. There are teams that really struggled and got very lucky last season, that other teams had bad seasons that they were able to stay in the league. I'd say Nottingham Forest are in that bracket. There could be one or two others that don't have a great season. And so I think it's not impossible for you to stay up, but I think it would be difficult to grab points. And I think not necessarily your points against teams in the other half of the table. I think it might be the points that you pick up against the top half could well be the difference in who stays in the Premier League this season.
With Newcastle United last season having Champions League football, we get 7th place position, 60 points. What does success look like for Newcastle United this season?
Very clear for us. There's 2 objectives, in my opinion, for Newcastle United. European football is a must next season, wherever that European football lands. Obviously, with the coefficient, it could be 8th that gets European football. It could be 7th. It depends on positions. So European football is an absolute must next season. We were so unlucky to get European football by finishing 7th, and then Man United winning the FA Cup, taking that away from us.
No one saw that coming. That was,
nobody did, and it was so frustrating. But having back-to-back European seasons would have been really positive for us. It didn't happen, but that's the minimum expectation for Newcastle United is European football. The second objective, which I believe will be the objective of our owners, PIF, and the Reuben brothers, will be top 5, and I believe top 5 will secure Champions League football this season, again with the coefficient. I think the English teams will have a better season in the European competitions, and I think that will then facilitate in 5th place going to England. And I think 5th place will be enough, and I think that will be their objective. They want to get back in the Champions League. There's an argument to say that we could have got it last season if it wasn't for those horrible injuries of top key players for us. We only finished, I think, 7 points or so behind Aston Villa. And I think without Pope since December, or November, should I say, without Barnes for nearly 5-6 months, without Sandro Tonali, without Joe Linton for 5 months, those players just off the top of your head, without those players for that period of time, I believe we'd have got points enough to overhaul Aston Villa for Champions League. And I think with those players back fit and firing and staying fit, I do believe we'll be in that conversation.
Just on that fitness point, I mean, there was a lot of talk with the amount of injuries that Newcastle had last season. Do you think, I mean, many people are saying it's down to the way Eddie Howe's doing the training and things like that. Do you think there's any truth in that? Do you think it's just bad luck, or is it just down to how the team's being coached?
Well, first of all, Eddie Howe's training methods, they are intense. The players say that, but what it creates is absolute supreme fitness levels. So you could tell against Champions League opposition, Girona and Stade Brest, who are at the same level of us as pre-season. Their seasons start this weekend like ours as well. Our fitness levels were so far ahead of theirs. We do work incredibly hard. You'll see on Saturday, and we've been seeing it all pre-season, we have a high press. We will push you right back. So if you're a team that likes to play out, we will try and exploit that. And that's due to the training levels. Now, what I will say is that some of or a lot of the injuries were in game, and they were very sort of innocuous type injuries. So, for example, Dan Burn was out for 9 weeks with a broken back, and that was just going up for a header and landing on his back funny. That's not down to training. Eddie Anderson was the same. He was out for 10 weeks with exactly the same injury, that he went up for a header in training, landed back bad on his back, was out for 10 weeks. That's not down to the training methods. Joe Linton was out for 5 months. He just played a pass inside in the derby against Sunderland in the FA Cup, and his thigh went, and he had to have surgery on his thigh. They're not down to training methods. It hasn't been injured on the training ground. A lot of these have been in game, in matches. Harvey Barnes was the same. So I don't put it down to Eddie Howe at all. They're very much just surprise injuries that nobody was expecting, and turned out to be serious injuries that kept players out for a long time.
Okay, 2 final questions for you, Pete. Let's go for the bold one. Score predictions and general predictions of how Saturday's game is going to go.
I expect Newcastle to win.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason being is because we're at St. James's Park, and our form there over the last 3 years has been very, very good. Very good. Beginning of the season, Eddie Howe's going to want to make a statement, particularly coming back in. And with all of our players fit and firing and ready, I do expect Newcastle to put on a performance on those games, on the game on Saturday. I do think that you will score. And if you want me to give a prediction, I think the score will be 3-1 to Newcastle United.
Wow, that's. I say I like it because you said that we're going to score. I don't say we like it because we're going to lose 3-1. But scoring would be one area that I am a little bit concerned about at the moment, if I'm honest. All right, my final question for you, Pete.
Go for it.
Your hot take on the Premier League this season.
Can I have two?
Yes, you can. As this is the first opposition show of the season, you can have two. I'll let that.
Okay. And the second one you might not like. Southampton fans. I apologise. I'm going to go Newcastle United to get fifth spot and secure Champions League football. That'll be my hot take. Second hot take. I've got a sneaky feeling that Bournemouth are going to surprise the Premier League this season. Now you might not like that because they're on that coast alongside you, but some of the players that they've signed this season have actually been really impressive in players that we've been linked with ourselves that we would have liked to have signed. So I think they're assembling a pretty decent team that not a lot of people are talking about.
I think that's well educated, to be honest with you, because I also watched them last season, saw them play very fast, progressive football. So I think so long as they keep their manager, they've lost Dom Solanke, but if they replace him with a striker, which is easier said than done, I think I actually predict them to finish mid-table for this season. So I also think they're going to do very, very well. If we both do well, it's good because it means we've got a local away day that's easy to get to. We're not paying 200 quid on the train to go see guys like you. But
where's the nearest after Bournemouth? Is it Brighton? Where's the nearest one to you?
Well, there's the actual derby, which is Portsmouth, down the road in Hampshire. So, but I guess the other nearest one. Well, last season apparently it was Plymouth, which I thought was hilarious because it takes like two hours and something to get to Plymouth from where we are. I think people think the South Coast is like pretty much like 2-3 miles. Yeah, it's just not. But it was fun to have South Coast rivalries. It's just by proximity. But yeah, no, it's all good to do. Pete, that was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. Please be sure to head over to Loaded Mag NUFC and give them a subscribe and like their content. I will also be heading over to the channel to be on their live show, which I'm very much looking forward to. It's always fun to chat all things Newcastle and Southampton with those guys. So I'm certainly looking forward to that. But please go and give the channel a like and subscribe, and that'd be absolutely fantastic. And Pete, no doubt we have plenty to talk about towards the game and after the game, and I'm certainly looking forward to it. And like I said, it's just good to be back having these conversations in the first place back in the Premier League. But there it is. So there it is.
I was going to say, Mike, just before you wrap up, just I do watch your channel. I have done ever since we've been kind of sort of collaborating together. It's such a fantastic channel. It really, really is, and we always encourage our fan base to subscribe to you, to watch what you do, and I know lots of our channel and our community do as well. So it's been great to sort of follow your work and keep up the good work, and it's great to have you back.
Oh, amazing. Thanks, Sophie. I do actually get comments. I had quite a few comments last season of subscribers of yours coming over and just watching our episodes and putting comments like, can't wait to see you guys back with Loaded Mag on the show. So there is plenty of truth in that, in the sense that the communities are connecting together. But yeah, good football content is good football content. So we certainly like to see the best in all. Fantastic. Well, Pete, I've taken up about 10-15 minutes more than I promised I said I was going to do, so I'm going to leave you to it. But But anyway, thanks so much for watching the opposition preview. We will be having plenty of content in the build-up to the game at the weekend. And we look forward to seeing you all at St James's Park. So as always, remember to like, comment, share and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. All right, see ya.